I'm Farhan Dalla, transformational trainer, and welcome to Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast, an invitation to take the journey towards your deepest self. It is my intention to inspire you to connect, move, and meditate. We'll tap in, tune in, and dive in, and together learn and reflect from authentic, real, and transformative conversations. Let's get started. Disclaimer: the information in this episode is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have a medical condition, please consult with a medical practitioner. Hi, everyone. This season, I've had some incredible stories of transformation, including from those that have healed from terminal cancer, and my own story of how I healed from scoliosis, applying the principles of the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza. But what about things like childhood trauma and mental health? Today's guests are Vincent and Maria Cristina Beima, and they are here to share their healing transformation about these topics and much more. Vincent is a Dutch entrepreneur, meditation guide, and community builder who went from complete burnout and breakdown in 2020, depleting him mentally and physically. After years of grinding, ignoring every sign his body was communicating to him, his nervous system simply shut down. This led to symptoms such as delayed vision, crushing headaches, panic attacks, or even driving as short as 20 minutes left him feeling overwhelmed. When a psychologist told him he might just have to accept this as his new normal, something inside him refused to believe that that was his reality. That refusal became the beginning of change and his journey towards his transformation. He discovered the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza and experienced profound physical healings, emotional releases, and mystical experiences. This has led to a new life and a way of existence that shifted him from survival to wholeness and living a new life with purpose and meaning. Joining me also is Vincent's wife, Maria Cristina. Maria Cristina was raised in what she describes as a narcissistic family dynamic, predominantly with her relationship with her mother. For Maria Cristina, love came with conditions, felt unsafe, and often with high expectations. Love came with a price. Very early on, she learned to rely on herself to perform, to adapt, and to become who she needed to be in order to feel accepted. Regardless of her efforts, it was never enough, nor did she feel she was enough. Despite this, Christina's intuitive abilities started to awaken. As a child, she had unexplainable inner knowings. She was aware that she had a twin. This information was never shared with her. As a teenager, she had dreams about her grandfather after he passed. In fact, they were direct communications that included him telling her about future events that eventually came true. Unsure about what this all meant and trying to survive her family dynamics, she focused instead on functioning, achieving, and trying to prove her worth. In December 2023, Maria Cristina attended a Dr. Joe retreat in Cancun. Her intention was to go to support Vincent. However, this led to a deeper awakening, including a reunion with her grandfather, and began her healing journey, including forgiving her mother. Her heart opened, and she was able to feel love for her mother for the first time. Since then, she's continued to do a deep dive into Dr. Joe's work, and like her husband Vincent, has led to physical, emotional, and mystical experiences. In a later retreat in Orlando, Maria Cristina learned that understanding your trauma doesn't heal you. In order to heal, you have to change as a person. Through her journey, she awakened to a deep truth, and that is that she didn't need to learn to love herself. She realized that she needed to remember that she already is love, and once she did, everything changed. Hi, Maria Cristina and Vincent. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much.
What a
Yeah.
beautiful intro.
Well, I hope it did it justice. I meant every word of it. And, just reading that out loud and you hearing it, how did that make you feel?
I felt my heart opening. It was at the beginning very uncomfortable, but then afterwards was like, oh, it does feel good to hear that again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
it's
even some of
also,
the parts you secretly forgot a bit about, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, that was also part of the journey," you know?
Hmm.
That just happens.
exactly. Well, you both went through a lot, and I want to dive in to learn about your individual journey. And for myself, from the perspective of being like a Dr. Joe student myself, but I want to start with Vincent. Vincent, your story of burnout is very relatable. And I think 2020 was a crucial year for many of us. Myself included, my mother transitioned that year, and I had to rebuild my entire life after being a full-time caregiver for 5 years. And so stories of burnout was very common amongst many of us. But for you, I want to know what was happening at that time. Let's go back to 2020. What was happening in your body and in your mind? And how was it impacting your life, including your career and your marriage?
Yeah, so it was, obviously, it was the year that COVID hit, right? So that was a lot of things were changing in the world, and for me, it was everything came to accumulation of different, I would say, almost timelines in my life. Looking back, it's easier to see where it all came from. So, I had my own business since 2015, so I've been, going out for my own for well, the past 11 years. Back then, it was already 6 years. And I learned just by the hustle culture, just keep working, keep head down, keep pushing, pushing, forcing, forcing. That's what I did. And for the longest time, I got away with that. And I ignored every signal of my body. Said, well, maybe I bought into masterminds and in different coaches, and everybody has a different way. And I was like, okay, let's try that way. Let's try that way. To some degree, you can learn from all these people. However, they're not in the same roadmap as you. They don't have the same character. They don't have the same struggles. They don't have the same stress resistance, whatever it is, right? So I was running other people's roadmaps, and it worked to a certain degree. I got what I wanted, and up until a point where 2020, the end of 2019, we were on our honeymoon. And I started already feeling a little bit of like anxiety sometimes in my body, or like mini panic attacks, I would say. Not that much, but just small enough to ignore, like, okay, this is going to be fine. Then 2020 hit, and obviously the world went into lockdown. And instead of, normally my routine was pretty easy. I was like work, gym, and then, have time with my wife. We go to restaurants or stuff like that. But at some point during lockdown, the gyms closed and the restaurant closed. So what do you do? Work even more hours, right? That's just what you do. So I started working even more, and it became very unhealthy because for 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks were interesting, but at some point it was just not great anymore. And at the end of 2020, I think it was not only that I worked a lot, but also the whole paradigm shift that happened in the world with, you know, the vaccine and the COVID and everything. And you saw politicians switch completely from 3 months ago, they said this to that's a completely different narrative. And I was like, what is happening? Everything combined put me into a position where I was overthinking everything, and my energy was drained either to future scenarios or past scenarios. And there was one event where I just got like a lightning bolt through my skull, like with this stab of pain, and it was like, oh, I never had that before. And then, you know, I ignored that. I was like, this is not good, but I think I'm okay. And then the next day, my body said, nope, you're not going to do anything. And I was trying to take some medicine, but the medicine didn't even work. So I just had to lay down for 3 weeks. That's what happened.
Hmm. And so, did you reach like a major sort of breakdown point, or what would you say was, a turning point when you decided like something needs to change?
Yeah. At the beginning, I'm pretty um, self-autonomous, so I was trying to find solutions because in my head there was always a thing like, okay, I broke myself. I should be able to fix myself. So the first thing I went to the doctor and to some psychologists, and they said, well, you probably have a burnout, which I'm like, yeah, I think so too. But then I explained them the symptoms and they just said like, well, maybe you should accept that, like things that I would found very funny. Instead of they saying, well, it might take time, they said, well, maybe you should accept that. And that was the thing where looking back, like I didn't want to surrender to that because I was like, I don't want to live here while I lived here. Like the quality of life just went down, delayed vision, all these things. So I didn't, um, I didn't want to stay in that. And I started searching. So I took various psychologists, haptonomics, breath work, cold plunging, a different type of coaches, like you name it, I tried it all. And some things helped more than others. And ultimately, but it was always treating the symptoms, right? And not really the core cause. So at the end of 2022, I exited my agency. I worked with a business partner for a long time that I actually never really felt aligned with and was not very evenly divided. So I pulled the plug on that. There's a whole different story to that as well. But then I decided, okay, I need to go to Joe Dispenza. I already saw some videos of him way before, but it was like, oh, this is interesting, but I don't have the time for this right now. And obviously, then you're running into a necessity in your life. And then you see that message again, that it was way more interesting for me. So that's the breaking point happened at the end of 2022. And then in 23, I went to Poland to
Right.
Progressive.
So how did you know you were at that breaking point? Like, did you get to this place where, like, I can just imagine you're in a whirlwind, right? Everything's kind of coming at you, like your career, your health. But did something of significance happen where you were like, that helped you steer in a better way? Like, did you ask for a sign? Did you ask for help? Like, did you receive some sort of internal guidance? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I did. There was, so the initial breaking point was the end of 2022 and, 2020. And then in 2022, I was so stressed out that my body I could only eat soup for like weeks because nothing was there. I was so under a lot of stress because I had to make a decision that I didn't want to make. And I had a friend back then who said, like, well, sometimes you just have to ask for a sign. And, but I know myself. If I ask for a sign and, let's say I want to see this red car, my mind would make it up as like, well, that's too obvious, right? It just rationalizes it. So I had to make a very specific um, um, signal or sign for me. And what I said is like, okay, I'm going with my family to the theme park tomorrow. And when that happens, the sign is this: a little kid with a very specific yellow rain jacket with a specific texture runs into me and my wife doing that. But the pathways are very wide. It was very uncommon. It's not like high season. So I forgot about it. And the next day we're in the park and we're just walking and some friends were with us as well. So there's a lot of distraction happening. And it was not busy that day. And then at some point, MC Cristina here was carrying our child who was probably 1 year old back then.
Not even.
Not even. And I'm not paying attention. I was talking to my friend and suddenly I hear her say, "Oh, Lade, please take care. I'm carrying a child." And I was like, what's happening? And so I looked back and a woman, like full frontal, collided with MC and our kid, Izzy. And then I looked again and the woman was wearing the exact yellow raincoat with the exact texture on it. And that moment, again, I got goosebumps, but my hair stood right up. I was like, oh, this is, it's not a kid running into me. It is a woman running into my kid with the exact yellow raincoat. It was exactly the same. It was so picture perfect that I couldn't ignore it. Like I couldn't pay it off like, okay, that's just maybe chance. And so I knew like, okay, I got to make that decision. And I just went with, I was like, okay, this is so clear as daylight. I got to do it. And
Were you a
that's how it
spiritual
started.
person before? Like, did you have a spiritual practice or so? I mean,
No.
for something like this is very specific, and it's almost coming from like you think your analytical mind, like the possibilities are very slim in your head, thinking this is even going to happen, but it does. So,
Yeah.
were you, I guess, like kind of thinking, okay, there's something more to all of this than I believed in the past. And maybe I need to lean into this a little bit more now.
Can I answer that question
Oh,
real quick? because because you said that with the analytical mind, he tried to rationalize the whole thing, and he knew what he had to do, but still his mind was still like, but maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe I should give it another chance. Maybe I should do this or that, because back then there was no spirituality in our life in that sense, how we're experiencing it now with Dr. Joe. And he was like, I wouldn't say miserable, but he was really struggling with that decision. And I said, but you got the sign, please do it. Like, and
yeah.
until to that point where it became so intense that he said like, okay, I have to do it. It was so uncomfortable. Like, even if the universe is giving you the clearest sign, you're still trying to rationalize it. So that what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's happened more things with science where the chances were 0.00003%, and I still tried to rationalize as a chance. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Dr. Joe. And before we do that, I just want to mention very quickly for those who don't know, Dr. Joe Dispenza is a chiropractor, author, and lecturer, and is known for his work on mind body healing, neuroscience, and personal transformation, blending quantum physics with ancient wisdom to teach people how to change their reality through meditation and changing beliefs, stemming from his own recovery from a spinal injury. Dr. Joe has retreats where he teaches this material, and I'll leave a link in the description for his website so that our listeners can learn more about Dr. Joe and his incredible work. So, Vincent, how did you come to learn about Dr. Joe's teachings, and what was it about it that resonated with you? Like, you're this person, very analytical, you don't meditate, probably, I'm assuming you didn't really like believe in something beyond, and then you're diving into this work that teaches us meditation and inner work. Like, what was that experience like? Like, how did you learn about his teachings, and what made it seem like this was like the path for you to try?
So I think in somewhere in 2019, the YouTube algorithm threw some of his videos my way, and I was like, and I watched it because in this entrepreneur space he fits right in for some reason, and I watched it and I was like, oh, that's an interesting message, but you know, obviously there was no necessity, and it's like interesting, but there's 1,000 things I also have to do. So I didn't really pay attention to it. So then when this thing happened in 2022 and I exited, I was like, okay, I remember that message. I searched him up on YouTube again, watched more videos. And the message that resonated with me is actually, you can heal yourself, which was I was looking for. I was like, if I break myself with burnout, depression, I should be able to fix myself. Right. And because all the things that I did were telling me like, well, maybe just accept the way things are. And I was like, I don't want to. I want to fix it. So that was the main message that really resonated with me.
Yeah, but also the teachings, that is not just because there were multiple people that told him like, maybe you should just meditate, but
Yeah.
you were like, why? Like, tell me why, like, what is it going to do? And they were not able to tell him what it would do. And yeah, he's very left-brained.
Joe,
Yeah.
Joe is really good at he picks up the people from the analytical science backed, everything is explained with science. And that really grabbed me because I was like, oh, so the woo woo gets pushed away. And now we have actually a formula that is proven that we can apply to, heal ourselves, and you could understand it. And for my logical brain, that was like, well, now I guess this is the right way. This is spiritual science backed stuff, and I like it. So yeah,
Yeah, science, as he says, is the language of spirituality, and
yeah.
the two go very well together. And he's an incredible scientist, and he explains the spiritual aspect of it through the science really well. So that definitely resonates with me as well. But can you describe, like, after attending some of the retreats and doing the works, what were the benefits you started to see in yourself physically and mentally?
Yeah. I think it started. So when I went to that first progressive, which was February 23, um, for the people that ever had a burnout or similar situation, the problem is your self esteem is so low because you cannot do the things you normally could do. So you kind of like at this ground floor level. And I had to go there alone. I wanted to do it to prove myself that I'm able to do it. But again, it also reinforced the same problem with the stress on my whole system of like, oh God, I have to get in this plane with all these people and I'm already overloaded. How am I going to do this? And all these things came on top of that. But I said, okay, still have to go. So even when, my whole system felt overloaded, I was like, I'm going to go. I'm just going to focus. And while I was there, I met some really nice people. And actually, my attention was off all the misery in my head. And while I was there at the end of what was it, 2.5 days, I was sitting back at the airport and I felt just some sort of joy and enlightenment I never felt before. I was like, regardless of that my system doesn't feel good, I feel good, And it was all from inside of me. It didn't come from anything externally. And that was to me a little bit of a proof that, like, he explains every time in the testimonies as well. Like, at that moment, I went home and I started meditating every single day. I just had a little bit of proof, like, oh, this clearly helps. And so I started meditating every day. And after that, there was an opening for Vienna a week long in August that same year. So I was like, I got addicted a bit and I was like, I want to go there too, because that's a week long. If this was 2.5 days, then what can happen in a week? And that week was the biggest transformation ever. Like, you want me to go into that?
Yeah, I want to talk about what was your biggest breakthrough moment and what did that feel like and what happened?
Yeah, there were 2, maybe 3 big breakthroughs that week. The major one was day number 2. So on day 1, everybody typically comes in. Everybody's a bit detoxing from their environment, so they're taking from the field. Back then, I didn't have, let's say, 10% of the knowledge that I have now about it, but I recognized at the end of day 1, I was like, hey, why don't I feel any different yet? Right. So that's, I was a little bit complaining and I was like, looking for a result outside of me. And somebody told me like, well, it's just day 1, this is typically what happened. And so I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So then the next day, which is day number 2, I had to go to the venue because in Europe, we don't have these big conference hall where everybody can stay. And so I had this little electric scooter and I sat on it, put my earplugs in and play some of my favorite music from that moment. And while I was I think 10 seconds in, when the music started playing, suddenly I had this, heart opening, bliss attack. People call it different things, but it was this major burst of the heart just blew wide open. And it's kind of like, I refer to it as, if you ever had a panic attack, it's the opposite of that, because the panic attack it's dreadful. You think you're going to die. And with this one, it's just pure love. And it was like, boom. And I was just crying on the bike. And I was like, what's happening? I just felt so happy with me, with nothing. And that was to me like, wow, this is such an amazing feeling. And so that was day number 2. And I started day number 2 right there. And then at a later meditation on that same day, I think it was one of the blessing of the energy centers with some miracle synchronicity in there. And there was a woman, I think 4 or 5 rows behind me, as she suddenly started screaming. And I never experienced that in the progressive. And I was in the week long. It was new to me. So I got a little like, whoa, what's happening? But it also it activated something up my spine. I felt these goosebumps going up. And at that point, I always had a neck injury. Like for the longest time, whenever I was doing it for too long, it just got stuck. And I felt this warm sensation going up my spine and my shoulder blade. And after that meditation, because the convulsing started happening at the beginning, I was looking at other people convulsing. I was like, where am I? What is happening? Right. The first time you see this, honestly, you're alarming. You're going to judge like, what is this weird? Should I go home? Right. And then it starts with you and you're like, okay, I'll just surrender to it. And it cleared my complete neck up. And to this day, that specific issue is no longer there.
Amazing.
So that was amazing. Then the other thing I got after that, at night in bed, I was sleeping and I woke up I recall it was 3:11 a.m. I woke up and my arms and my legs started just moving how they ever wanted. Like they started to move in different directions. And I was like, what is going on? Because it just continued from where we left off in the meditation. Well, back then I found it super weird and a little bit fearful, but again, surrendering to it. And after, I think a bit like half an hour, it stopped and I went back to sleep. And then the next day, I started to have a fever. So in hindsight, this is what people call Dispenza influenza, right? You get a biological upgrade. But back then I was like, oh, this is not good, right? Should I maybe go home but luckily I met a person there. He's now a great friend of ours. He was an osteopath and he has a lot of energy work. And I told him, he said, how are you doing? I said, well, I'm doing great, but I have a fever now and I don't know what to do. He said, great. You're burning out the old into the new. So, hang tight, embrace it. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. So I just did 2-3 days with a fever, being there. Those were the biggest things, really.
So Maria Cristina, he comes back after the progressive and he's meditating and you're like, who are you and what have you done with my husband? Am I right? Like,
no, I actually thought I finally have my husband back.
Oh, amazing.
Because after 2 years in the burnout and while he was struggling with that, I got pregnant. So I had that journey, like he had his journey, I had my journey. And while he was in the most painful time of his life, I was actually in my most joyful. And there was not very much synchronicity there. So he was always like that funny, that always like cheerful person to me that was always making jokes, even about the smallest things. And suddenly the joke stopped. If I made a joke, it wasn't reciprocated or it was not understood as a joke. Everything became so serious. Everything became like very hard. And I took over a lot of responsibilities from him. He never asked me, but I just thought like if I would take that away from him, he would not have that struggle. He would not complain about it. He would not, fall into another panic attack. So I took on a lot of responsibilities from him. And when he came back from the progressive, he was so happy and suddenly he started to make jokes again. And when he did that, for me, that was like I have him back, So that was just very joyful for me and I think it's an understatement to say that, but I was like, please continue whatever you're doing. And just do that. And when he said, I'm going to Vienna, I was like, go. If 2.5 days are gonna give me this, what is a week gonna give me, And he started talking about it. He started reading all the books and it became more and more. And he's a person that when he focuses on something, he goes all in. So I never read the books, but I think I read the books because he was over and over and over and over and over explaining it to me. But I had him back, I wasn't scared. I wasn't fearful. I didn't know what, but I thought it can only get better than what I had before.
Vincent, how did you know you were back or maybe even better than you were before?
That is a very good question. I think for me, looking back, I think the first thing for me, just the experience of the heart opening itself was so profound for me, and the feelings, like I've never experienced anything like that. And there's then some sort of a belief in yourself or in a greater something that is, watching over you or helping, assisting you. And I feel just more like the universe has my back and I'm more trusting, right? I think that was it. And I was no longer the victim of my circumstance, the victim of my burnout. I actually got what I wanted. I have my, the fix is here, focus on this and keep doing it and you'll get out on the other side. That was kind of like the feeling that I got, like, yes, I found the cure. Now I just got to work with it more and more. I think that was for me what it was.
The belief, yeah.
The belief.
I told him that while I was pregnant, I told him we were on a mini holiday with the two of us. I think they call it like baby moon or something. And we were walking in the forest by ourselves, and he suddenly felt again this rush of, oh my God. And he felt so bad and said, like, how can I be a good father if I have this? And he was spiraling again. And then I looked at him and I said, one day you will look back at exactly this moment and you will say, the burnout was the best thing that ever happened to me. And back then he couldn't believe me. And when he came back from, I think it was Vienna, he said, like, yeah, it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Vincent, knowing where you were and where you are now,
Yeah.
what message would you have to someone that's going through a burnout or is now experiencing where you were in 2020?
I think what I would recommend them is you have to move inward, right? We can do all these things externally and found frameworks of coping with it, but what I found is that majority of it, or actually almost everything, is treating symptoms, but nothing treats the core. And for me, my burnout was me. It's my character, it's my personality, how I thought, how I act, and how I feel about certain things. Do that for a prolonged period of time, the system starts to break down. So um, the remedy is in who you are. And probably everybody, when they look inward, they're going to feel like, yeah, I am that way. And we can tie it all the way back to nervous systems from our own parents and stuff, right? What I also did on the journey was I started interviewing my parents. I want to know where I'm coming from because I didn't know anything about them. So go inward, start to really reflect on why am I doing what I'm doing? And start asking the deeper questions instead of getting that next pill just to compensate for something that is in your system, but just it's a symptom, right? It doesn't treat the core. And I want to fix something. And if that's you, that's what I would recommend.
Through your meditations and you've been at this now for a few years, what are some of or can you describe the mystical experiences that you've had and what was that like?
Yeah, there were a couple. One was in Cancun in December 23. Yeah, in
3.
23 I went to 3. I went to the Progressive in February, Vienna in August, and then December. In December, Cristina also came along. That at some point there, that was my first time because everybody, if you've been to Joe Dispenza retreat, at some point you hear people scream, right? Like I experienced also in Vienna, and I was like, what is happening? This time it was me who did the screaming, and it's something that goes against everything that I typically was as a person, because I typically I don't want to be on the forefront. I'm more laid back and I can control everything. This time I could not. So at the end of the meditation, I was just lying down, and Maria Cristina, at the lay down part, she already sat up on her chair, and that's where I slowly start feeling the trembling in my legs, and I was like, okay, whatever's there. And it went up and it actually moved into my jaw. And honestly, it felt to me from the outside like it felt like an exorcism, because my jaw was moving left and right and all these weird type of things.
It also looked like that, by the way. Like, it was really, that was the first time I saw it. And I really sat there uncomfortably saying, like, do I have to do something? And then I saw one of the green heads looking at him, was like, and then left and was like, okay, I guess that's normal. But
The volunteers, yeah.
yeah. And
I was still with my blindfolds on, saying to you, I'm okay, it's gonna be okay, just to, because I know
no,
this
you
would
did not
look
say that. You did not
I
say
not?
that. No, you did not.
I guess I experienced that during the thing, but
Yeah.
at the final end of that experience, I recall I saw these visions of a very dark forest. It was super dark, and the leaves were dark, the plants were dark, the trees were dark. It was just pitch black with some grayness. And then the tops of these plants were like reddish, like red lightish. So there was some light, but it was dark red. And then there were I saw like wind flowing. And then at some point I felt from within like number 3, so the solar plexus, I felt something coming up into my throat. And then I could not control it. So like I said, I can control anything, but this time it wanted to get out. And there was this major, like, I only can call it an ancient man cry, right? Something from the ancestors came out, how I say it. And it was just this major, like, this super cry that came out. And what I heard in my system was speak your truth, which resonated so much with me because I typically am adapting like a chameleon with whoever I meet because I'm like a pleaser personality. So that resonated so much with me, the speak your truth type of thing. And that just came out like that. So that always has stuck by me. Like, okay, that's one. And then the other big thing, actually there were more, but let me just see which one. The last one that I can recall here at home was 5 days after last year's June 2025. I came home and I reached the point in my meditation where like the meditation was so great and I was just sitting there. I was talking and I said, yes, I did it to myself. And for some reason, I heard a voice saying, yes, you did it. And he said, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, what's that? And then it said to me 3 times in my native language, which is Dutch, it said, everything is love, everything is love, everything is love. And for some reason, I had the feeling it was me from the future. If I hear myself say this now, like it sounds so weird because I came from a position not being spiritual to saying this, right?
Mm.
It is so far off. But
Yeah.
that's to me how, through this work, you learn how to understand something not from here, your head, but through your heart.
Mhm.
And sometimes it has so much power. And you just know that that's true for you. And it's not something from the head, it's really from the heart. So that's how you know that something for you is true. And that was the major experience there.
Mhm. And to our listeners who've never been to a Dr. Joe's retreat, don't let any of this alarm you. The speaking and the convulsing is often ways people will release things, and that shows up in different ways. And sometimes it shows up as hysterical laughter or tears. Like, it's different for everyone. And when you're there, you kind of get used to different people having their experiences. And it's okay to have your own. And I think that's what Vincent is trying to convey as well, that he
Yeah.
allowed himself the permission to surrender and allow whatever was coming to the surface to do what it needed to do. And the result of that is, him speaking the way he is today and who he has become. So it's incredible to see. And I'm sure, Maria Christina, you can agree that you've witnessed this journey and seen him come along from like not being spiritual, and all of a sudden you're talking about mystical experiences. Like, your conversations at dinner must be very different. So like, yeah, today
Oh.
I had meditation, like, and I heard this, or I felt this, or I heard this voice, and it was my future self. And it's probably far different from what it was even 2 or 3 years ago.
Hmm. I mean, also the fact that we're here and talking about this openly. Like he said, he's very reserved. And for many, many years, I would be the only person he would talk to about a lot of things. And I think I am the only person that knows him 100%, the good, the bad, the ugly, like everything. And what he said about speaking the truth, even with his friends, like suddenly he started to open up and he started to talk about things and to not put it away. And even this right now, like knowing that the story and what he went through came out, like I'm very proud of him because I think that he's so important to me, but he also has so much to say and to give that he always um he never saw it in himself. I always saw him as the purest a person, and I always told him like he's so kind, and he was putting away that kindness because it was not reciprocated or not accepted. And I fell in love with his kindness because I never received that kindness, and I saw that as his strength. And so for me to see now that he's embracing his kindness and he's embracing his truest self, yeah, it's very special.
Yeah, and it sounds like that you held on to that kindness because you knew it was always there
Yes.
from the time that you met him, and it's what, like you said, was why you fell in love with him. But while Vincent was going through his burnout, how did that impact you? on a day-to-day basis? And I guess this is like a two-part question because, you know, I not only want to get a sense of how this impacted you, but was
hmm
any of this mirroring back to you some of the areas that require your own attention to your own healing? Did any of that sound the alarms to direct you to your own healing journey?
It only came later, because I would say we're both very, um, yeah, we are pleasers. So he pleases me, I pleases him, and then we go over our own boundaries. So as I mentioned before, I was in my happiest state because I was pregnant. So my pregnancy was amazing. I am normally a very structured and precise. I'm always like running person because I have like a to-do list from here to Tokyo. Um, but when I was pregnant, everything like there was, I don't know, I can only explain it as like a button that just shifted in my brain and said, nothing in this world is more important than this child that you have in your belly. So while he was going through, I would say, his first year of burnout, I was helping him with my positivity, and I was telling him like everything is going to be fine. I was taking on a lot of the responsibilities where he felt very guilty because he said, you're pregnant, I should take care of you, but you're taking care of me. um like I said, my pregnancy was good, so I was like, if I can take it on, if I have the energy, let's do it. But then after, when the baby came, then a lot of things shifted. I also had to take care of the baby. I had to take care of him. So that led to me neglecting myself a lot. Because what I said, I took away a lot of the responsibilities from him, for the baby, for myself, for him, like anything you could think of. The only thing that he had to focus on was himself, and the rest I took care of, like everything. And I functioned until I couldn't. And so there was one breaking point where he was so in his state where he said like, yeah, but you don't know what I'm going through because I'm having this burnout. And something in me just like shifted, and I got so mad because I was like, I'm in there as well. You have the burnout, but I have to live with your burnout as well. And so that was, I think, roughly the point where you started to go to Joe, where I had like my breaking point of, yeah, something has to change because this, like, I cannot go on with that anymore. And that was really way later where I started then to see and to look inwards, because I didn't give myself the luxury to look inwards because I had to look outwards. I had to look at my child. I had to look at him. Until my body really didn't let me anymore, I would say.
Hmm. You described, your childhood as being difficult and having a narcissistic parent. I can relate to that. I had a narcissistic parent as well.
hmm
And so your story is very relatable in many ways. Can you give an example or a specific moment from your childhood that kind of sheds light on, what your upbringing was like and how that led to the perception of who you were because of it?
Yeah, so it it was always very difficult. Like there were a lot of layers to it. Um, I'm originally from Italy, but I grew up in Germany. So for people that don't know the cultures, they are very different from each other. Um, my parents chose to go to Germany because there's just more working possibilities and everything. And I'm from a southern Italian, so from Sicily, and there the culture is very traditional, very Catholic, very family oriented, and there were specific rules that we had to abide to, even though we were living in Germany. So there was always this identity crisis that I had from a very young age, like very, very little. And so I think there's also the middle child syndrome. I'm kind of like the rebel, and I want to against the rules, and always the why, but why, but why. I still am that person. Like I always ask why. But I think I clashed a lot because of it with my mother. She was, I think, one of the experiences that I could think of that relates the most to how I grew up was I think I was 9. I had the most amazing day at school. It was so good. Everything went well. I had the best grades. I had the best time with my teachers, with my friends. Like everything was amazing. And I can still remember to this day how amazing I felt. And I had to walk home for about 15 minutes. And I thought to myself, I have to regulate my emotions. I have to calm down because I don't know how my mother, how my mother's mood is at home. So I had to slowly calm down, and I had to first like feel the room to see if I was allowed to share my happiness or not. So it was always this, I was always taking like a big breath and then opened the door of our house and then looked in to feel the emotions of the house. And that day she was again in her mood or anything. And then I was like, okay, I cannot share. If I would have shared, it would have been like, oh, so you think you're better and you think that everything, like she would immediately tone me down immediately. Because I was always this bubbly and cheerful, she was always like trying to like push me down, like, oh, so you think that you're better than your sisters, or you think that you can do this and that, like always trying to get me down, talking down on me. So I think that would encapsulate the emotional moments that I had when I was growing up. There was no inner emotions. I was never allowed to have my own emotions because I had to look how her emotions were going and then adapt to it.
It sounds like you have to protect yourself from, you know,
Yes.
emotionally, and many times, and I can relate to this, is that we minimize ourselves, or we try not to make things such a big deal, and we're always tiptoeing around the narcissist, making sure that we don't upset them, upset them in any way, because then the responsibility falls on us because we made them upset. So
Yeah.
I can relate
Yeah.
to
And
that.
love was conditional as well. So I
Yeah.
think that was also one thing. Like if she was giving you love, it was there was always a condition with the love. Yeah.
Can I give one big example of the conditional love from your mom?
Yeah. Go
Because
ahead.
that's always stuck with me. I don't know what you did. It was something really was not that, you know, big, but what you said to me is like, because you did that, she would take away the payment for your driver license. You paid typically for the kid's driver license, but
Oh yeah.
because you did something, see, I'm not going to pay for it anymore. And she did not. Like,
Yeah.
that's conditional. It's like, ooh, that's.
No, what I said, she gave each of us, she said, I will pay for half of your driver's license. The other half you have to pay for yourself. I was like, yeah, sure, fine. But she was again saying like, why are you not going to the driver school? Why are you not doing this? And like, it was always like, it had to be in her schedule. And the only thing that I said was, Mom, can I do it on my time? Because I have a job. I have 2 jobs actually, and I have exams coming on. I want to do it my way. And she looked at me and she was like, you are so ungrateful. You're going to get nothing. That's the only thing I said. Only wanted to do it my way. And that was not okay.
So I'm sorry you went through that, but I want to know, after having done Dr. Joe's work, how
Mm.
has that changed how you see yourself today?
Um, so I want to say that it didn't just start with Dr. Joe's work. I did a lot of work prior to that. Um, I think I started after I left home. I think it was like 2 years after I left home. No, 1 year, sorry. There was a big incident. There was like a bomb that was placed at the Belgian airport. And there was a train coming from that airport to the Amsterdam airport. And it was assumed that the people that placed the bomb would go to Amsterdam. Back in that time, I was working at a big company that was right at the station. And so there was a train coming, and suddenly we saw the military, we saw snipers, we saw like everybody like surrounding that area where I was working. We were not allowed to go out. And we're like, if they're evacuating, why are we not allowed to go out of that building? And so I got already anxious, and I started writing my sisters, my parents, everybody. I started losing my voice because I was so nervous. So, I'm still feeling it. I'm sorry. We found out that apparently a bomb was also set in the building where I was working. And that happened that same morning where they had set the bomb in Belgium. And that's why we were not allowed to go out, because they didn't know what would trigger the bomb. A door, a window, nothing. So at that point, I shut down completely, and I couldn't talk. Like, I could only write. At some point we got out and I went home. A colleague of mine brought me home, and my sister started calling, my father, like friends, everybody started calling me, but she didn't, like my mom didn't. And so one of my sisters, they were both still working, living at home. They were like, did you call MC? And she was like, no, why? So I was like, she wrote you, right? I was like, yeah. Well, if she wants something, she can call me. And that for me was like the breaking point. And I was like, even when your own child is in a dire situation, you cannot go over your own self to just call her. And that was for me the breaking point. And yeah, go ahead.
The added context there is that you were having some issues already with your mom, right? So you were not on like normal speaking terms, but everybody knows, like, if your child is in severe danger, you would scoot that all to the side. She just did not.
Yeah.
Right?
And so when I decided to go no contact, my self-esteem was so low. I couldn't go lower. And that was the point where I started then my journey of healing. I started reading books that helped me. And I saw my identity then shifting. I saw that I wasn't that bad. I started thinking freely, because I always had her voice in my head. What would she think? What would she want me to do? Like, it was always about her. I didn't know how to think freely. And so with that pre-work, I understood a lot about my childhood, also understanding that she was a narcissist, understanding that I was like the scapegoat, and a lot of things. So the knowledge was there. What helped me with Dr. Joe was the actual forgiveness of her. I thought I forgave her. I thought that I worked through it, but I worked through it with my mind. I worked through it with my head. I rationalized a lot of things, but my heart was still hurt. And so when I was in Cancun, and I had this one meditation, it was a very profound one. I saw my ancestors coming to me. I saw the male and the females that were standing next to me, like the male ones on the left, the females on the right. And my mom was standing there as well, because I embraced my past And when it came to her, I looked at her and I also said like, yes, I embrace you too. And I love you. And it was the first time I was able to say that. And I wasn't like, it was not conditional. Like there was no condition to that. I love you. It was no matter what, despite anything, I love you. And that was the healing that I got from Dr. Joe. And after that meditation, I got out of it. I was like, that's how it feels to be healed, because I only worked it through with my head. I thought I was healed because I understood it, but only because you understand your past and you understand your traumas doesn't mean that you've healed your traumas. So that was like the biggest thing for me when I started the work of Dr. Joe, to really go deep.
Hmm. In addition to the emotional healing, did you experience any physical healings while you were there?
Yeah. When I went to Orlando, so that was almost a year after, October 2024.
Mhm. So this is where you decided you were going to choose to remember that you are loved instead of
Yes.
learn to love yourself. 'Cause I
Yes.
got that as a huge, like, and I want to emphasize this to our listeners. Like, this is like a really important point. You set the intention to remember that you are loved instead of learning
Mhm.
to love yourself. And what happened in Orlando?
Yeah.
That intention.
Yeah. So when I went to Orlando, I had the intention to learn, right? Again, I was rationalizing it. And I want to emphasize how important the people are that you meet
Mhm.
in your journey, as much as what you learn from Dr. Joe itself, because they can give you so much. They helped me a lot. So the first day on registration, I was talking to Jeffy, which is, I met her there. She's become a really good friend of mine. And there was another girl sitting next to us, and I was talking with her, and I said that sentence, I want to learn how to love myself. And that person next to me, she just grabbed my arm and looked at me, and she was like, I have to tell you something. And then that's when she said, you don't have to learn it. You have to remember, because you're born out of love. Nobody is born out of hate. Everybody's born out of love. And that sentence was so fundamental, because it was right before the event even started. Because for me, it felt like I was looking to the right and I was trying to find something there. And she just redirected me and said, no, just look there. Like, it's right there. You're trying to find a new pathway. You're trying to like invent the wheel again, but the wheel's already there. And so that was so fundamental for me that it changed everything. Every meditation, everything that I did after and in Orlando was so fundamental because of that sentence. And so when I did one of the walking meditations, I was still focusing on love, self-love, unconditional self-love. And at some point I got like this voice in my head that told me, you can run now. And for 2 years, I wasn't able to walk long distances, run, like do not much, because of my the birth of my child. My hip got distorted, and it was like misplaced twice. Like it literally like went like this and rotated. And so because of that, every time I moved like just too much, I walked 10 minutes, it already started hurting. And for 2-3 days, I couldn't walk properly. And so I wasn't even focusing on that. Like when I went there, I was like, I can focus on my hip. I can focus on this. I can focus on that. But I was just focusing on love. And suddenly I just felt like, I don't know, it wasn't even like that intense cracking or hurtful or nothing. It was just that voice that said, you can run now. And I didn't believe it at the beginning. And I thought like, yeah, let's just like walk. I know I can run, but I'm not going to. And I was like, I'm just going to run. And then I started running, and I could, 2 years of not running, I was crying, and I was running so fast. It felt like, and I wasn't out of breath once. Like you were there as well. So I did like 2 rounds of the whole walking meditation path without breaking a sweat, but crying like in tears. And I can still move. I'm going to the gym, and it's healed, even though I was not focusing on it.
That's amazing. What does remembering that you're loved feel like?
Whew. It was painful. I would say I had to shed first all my layers and all my walls. I had to. It felt like dying. And it sounds very extreme because but you're talking about love. But with love comes, like, I felt like my old identity had to go away in order for the new one to come out, like in order for that love to blossom. I couldn't be that person if I was still holding on to the old one, to the person that made me survive all these years, made me strong, made me harsh, made me like everything that I was. So it felt very painful, and it was really like I was grieving someone. And once I accepted that that person is gone, it felt good. But at first felt very, very uncomfortable.
Hmm. How has doing this work changed you as a mother?
I'm very aware of what I'm giving him. I'm very aware of my behavior towards him. And I'm always trying to, I always did before, but I'm more aware of what I'm putting him through. I'm not saying that I'm completely healed. I'm not saying that I'm 360, because I think that that is also something that I want to emphasize. The healing is a journey for me. It's not instant. Like, yes, there were instant things that happened, but I wouldn't say I'm like from full cancer to no cancer. I would say I'm somewhere in remission. I'm in that cocoon phase of like a butterfly where I'm transforming. I make him aware of everything. Like, I'm not holding back. If if I'm sad, I show him that I'm sad, and I make him understand my feelings. And he is very intuitive because of it. He can read a room better than we can.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we show him and we live that it is okay to show emotions, that it is okay that daddy is sometimes sad, that mommy is also sometimes sad or mad, or the whole spectrum of emotions, not just the good. And I think that is going to make him like a much better human being, better than us.
He's got two great role models. Um, During Dr. Joe's retreats, he offers what are referred to as coherence healings. And this is when a group of people, about 6, will send healing to a person who is referred to as a healee. And you can learn more about, how to get a healing on Dr. Joe's website. You don't have to attend a retreat to actually receive healing. Healings are available for free, and you can just sign up. They're even available for your pets. And there's, like I said, no cost. There's volunteers all around the world who send healings to individuals every day, multiple times a day. But during the retreat that you attended, Maria Cristina, or MC, as you are sometimes called,
Just call
what
me MC.
MC is, what, if any, mystical experiences did you experience during like a coherence healing? And did any of that contribute to your own healing?
Yeah. there were two instances that were very profound. One happened in Cancun and the other one happened in Orlando. The first one in Cancun was actually my biggest nightmare, because I already had trouble accepting to go to Cancun, because we went with the both of us. And back then, Izzy was barely 1 year old. And for me, like, the mom guilt kicked in, and I said, I'm a bad mother for leaving my child all by himself. Like, yes, I left a couple of days, but I always left him with his dad, or vice versa. But we never left with the both of us and left him alone. He was with his grandparents. He was okay. But for me, that was like, how bad of a mother can you be to think about yourself and leave your child for a week? So there was so much struggle that I still went. But one of the things I said was, if I have a coherence healing, I do not want to have a child, because I cannot deal with that. Because Vincent told me,
Even
like,
if the
that
child isn't really like,
as a Healy, yeah,
okay.
yes,
Mhm.
because he told me, like, yeah, sometimes there are also children. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I don't know if I want to be confronted with that. Lo and behold, what do I get? I get a child.
Same age as Izzy.
Same age, exactly the same age as Izzy. Boy, you walk into the room, and I was really in my zone. I was completely focused, in a kind of like a trance state. I cannot even explain how it is, but I was so focused. And I get grabbed from behind and put to a chair, and I just looked for a second, and I saw that child lying there, and I broke down. I was completely in tears, and I tried to hold it back because the mother was there as well, of course, because the child cannot be there alone. And I was like, oh, please don't make her notice me. And I already saw myself leaving the room because I couldn't do it. And then something inside of me, or like a voice, it wasn't mine, said, this is why you came. This is the reason why you've come here. And that was so intense that I put myself together, and instead of focusing on the child, I was focusing on the mother. Because in that moment, I wished her everything I had. I wished her very specifically, because in that time, Izzy started running, to run behind her child, like to just feel that joy. I didn't even know, because nobody tells you what the Heelys have before you do the healings. So I didn't know what the child had. But whatever it was, I was just like, I hope, like, I was focusing on her. And once I did that, I just felt like this rush of energy, and I had my blindfold on, because you have these blindfolds on. I felt like a beam of light rushing through my body. And it was so intense that I could feel the light and the energy rushing through my hands. And it gets really creepy now. I know that for people that never heard this, they think like, what the heck is going on? But it really felt like it. And I could see the energy coming out. And I was just focusing so much on that mother. And after it was done, I fell into my chair, and my consciousness left my body. Like, I was stripped out of my body, and I saw myself from the back, and I was like, what is going on here? Like, I got so scared that I was like sucked right back
You
into
had like
my
an out
body.
of body experience, like,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For like 5 seconds, and because then I was aware and I was scared, and then I got right back in. And that was really profound. And after the meditation, like, she told us what the kid had. Couldn't walk, had 30 strokes a day, lost all abilities. It was a 2-year-old boy, but he was basically a newborn from everything that he was able to do with his body and his mind and his development. And so after the meditation, I was just sitting there completely out of it. And I just looked to my right, and I saw her running behind her child, because he was able to walk. And I was in tears, and I was like, wow, if I can do that, like, what can I do? Like, that gave me so much confidence. So that was the first one. The second one was actually even crazier. No,
More than that.
more than that. So that was in Orlando, and it was the second coherence healing. It was always the second one, like always the second coherence healing. I don't know what it is, but it was
Because
the
you're the
second
middle
one.
child, that's why.
There you go. Synchronicities.
Whoa.
And you said it, you have 6 people that are sitting there to focus on one Healy that is lying in front of you. And I was already with the blindfold on, but I felt like someone grabbed someone out of the chair from my right and redirected them, because probably there were like lesser people for another person. So my right chair was empty. And at some point, like really at the beginning, at some point, I felt someone sitting down again. And I was looking to the right. And again, I had my blindfold on. I couldn't see, but I could see. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. I turned around and I saw a light being next to me, sitting next to me. And whatever I was doing, that being was doing, like it was mimicking me. And I was at some point like so out of it. I was like doing this and it was doing that back. And I was like, okay, probably it's there for the Healy, right? Because they say like they come for the Healys to then heal them. But because it was mimicking me, I was like, it's so weird. Is it an ancestor? Is it my grandpa? Is it like my twin maybe that I never met? Like I knew I was a twin, but he was gone before we even before we were born. I never met him, so I was like, well, because I don't know how he looks like, maybe it's him. I don't know. At some point, I gave up, and we were focusing on that Healy, and I just felt like this light being merging into my arm, like we were connected, and healing that person. And right before Dr. Joe says, and now turn your love inwards, it already started redirecting my energy that I was giving to that person towards me. And I always said, like, I have so much love to give. I can give so much to the Heelys that after I gave so much, I don't have anything left for myself. But in that moment, I was still like shooting that love, that energy towards that person, that it just did like boom, like that. And that's where like this love then came to me. And that's where I think the moment where I felt the unconditional love for myself happened. And I felt finally like, oh my God, this being is here for me to heal me. And there was so much bliss and so much love and so much happiness. And it was not coming from the outside. It was all me. And it felt like it was just showing me that it was already there. It didn't have to do anything. Like it didn't have to crack my bones. It was not painful, but it was just so much light inside of me that, and once I was done, I turned around, it looked at me, and I was thanking it, and I bowed, and it bowed back and then left. And the person sitting to the left of me put his blindfold off after the meditation, looked at me, and he looked, I was like, I swear I felt a second person sitting right next to you, but there's no one. Like, how is it possible? And then I told him that story. Like, we both felt the presence, but there
Right.
was nobody. So yeah, it's very
I love that story. And it
intense.
brings me back to what Dr. Joe says about the coherence healings. And that is that the love that we give is the love that we receive.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's infinite.
And
Yeah.
it is, you cannot quantify the amount of love that's available. There's enough for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
the Heelys and the healers. But I'm wondering, after hearing your stories of healings between the two of you individually, but how did that all impact your marriage? Like, what has changed since you've been on this journey as individuals? How has that changed your relationship? if any?
That's a very sorry, very good question. I I think we're not even aware of all the ways that it has impacted us.
No.
But I do think that where you formally, whenever you enter a discussion or, once in a blue moon you have a fight, now there's much more understanding of like, okay, coherence. How do you, have this discussion or this talk in a coherent way? Um, Nervous system regulation, we kind of like you discuss it from a different angle rather than just being caught up in the emotion. You know how to yeah, really stay more coherent. So that's one of the things. And I think um yeah, the spiritual bond, yeah, I think that's there. You talk more on like we both always love deep talks. We don't like small talks. We don't like to chit chat. We just like we meet people also, and in our retreats we meet people from the other side of the world. We haven't met them, and within 10 minutes you have talks about something that with your neighbor you could never talk about. Right? That's just beautiful. So we always love that, and I think it added a level of depth into that. Like we never stopped talking like about anything. Her sister is an example of that. She always told like, why don't you guys ever shut up? Because we were always talking. It's like, where does it end? Why do you always have to talk? Like, well, you always have something to talk about.
With each other, right?
With each other.
So,
Yeah.
No, but I think the talks are much more profound. Like you ask deeper questions, but you also have a much better understanding of where that person comes from. So you would rather not say something than to say it because you know where that would lead. I think like there's so much depth now to the traumas that we have, that I don't know, it, I when I talk with him about these things, about the mystical experience and everything, and like at the beginning I felt uncomfortable because I thought, okay, maybe he's gonna judge me because he didn't have them
Right.
as frequently and as often as I had them, especially with deceased people that I started having.
Right.
And I felt uncomfortable saying that. And when I started, I was like, okay, like it was already unconditional, but it's really unconditional. Like everything that we're going through is so unconditional. So I wouldn't say that much has changed because we were already so aligned, but it brought a level of depth that we didn't have before, a level of understanding from our past that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
And I think
So,
oh, sorry.
well,
I
go
think
ahead.
that the last thing, that the bigger thing that it brought to us, what we're always looking for, but we didn't know, is this sense of community.
Mm.
This, that we have met so many wonderful people from around the world, and we consider them, very close friends, whether it's from New Zealand or LA or anything in between. We've now so much in touch with people in this work, and that brings us, this sense of community, and that brings you into your, it's just the whole thing just changed. So that's, I don't know how to describe that, but yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I concur. I think one of the things that I love about doing this work is that it brings you together as a community from people all over the world. And there is such goodness in all the people that you meet, right? And what I love is that everyone who does this work is finding some way to help others, to do something that they can offer to help others, to uplift others, to give back in whatever way they can. And together, you have turned your traumas and healing into a life of meaning. You started an organization called Harmonic Leap. And I'd like for you guys to talk a bit about your mission and the types of services that you provide.
Oh, that's so nice. Well,
Yeah, it's an important part
it's
of the conversation.
yeah. Well, it started out of nowhere.
As it
I would
does.
say, as it does. Um, Again, with my traumas, I always thought I have to work really hard to get somewhere. I have to do all the work by myself. I have to be the one doing things. And so when I felt finally the love for myself, what changed was the belief that anything can happen, even for me. And after Orlando, I started searching for accountability for myself to keep on doing the work. And yes, I have my husband at home and he's doing the meditations every day. But with relationships, sometimes you can be very easy and say like, oh, let's just sit on the couch and not do it. So I needed an outside accountability. And when I started asking, it was one person, and like the person that I mentioned before, Jeffy, and then Vincent, and then there were other people from Europe that came into this accountability group, and we were 4, and then suddenly it was 10, and suddenly 50, and suddenly 100, and now we are at 800 people. So it started with accountability for myself and being responsible for myself and helping myself to stay committed, and it became a community of people that want to do the same. And so that mission started with just being there for each other, meditating every day, twice a day. And then it became more of like, we are meeting each other every day online. Let's meet offline, not just at the events, but also outside. And so we started creating our retreats where we didn't just combine the learnings and the teachings from Dr. Joe, but also other modalities that helped us. So, for example, breath work and different energy work like yoga, boxing was very important to us as well, to release emotions. And so we combined a lot of things that helped us and started doing retreats. And we actually started with one. We said we want to meet the people again, and that was one, and that's it. And then people were like, okay, let's do one more. When's the next one? And we're like, we don't have another one. And they're like, no, you have to do another one. And right then and there, I talked with the owner of the villa, and we set up 3 more dates. And yeah, in a month, we're going to our 3rd retreat. So
Which is
that's
where
in Sicily.
it's just
Yes, which is exciting. Like nothing was planned. Everything just happened, and it was very natural. And in the community, we also do Q&A sessions. We do talks with experts. You were one of the
it was
experts
one
for
of your
us as
talks.
well.
Yeah, it was one of.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Yeah. To motivate people to also see that, yes, what you do in the meditations is very important, but also how you show up during the day and how you can feel and stay with this elevated emotion throughout the day with different modalities. So we do that with our community, with our calls, and Vincent is hosting his breathwork sessions as well there. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's more about the actual integration part because at the
yes,
events it's such a high rise, and then people go home and yes,
Yeah,
things start to taper off. There's something happens. So the integration, what we found what was missing, and so that's where we create a membership out of. Um, yeah, it's been really it all went by flow and organically, really.
yeah,
that's
Uh,
amazing. I could talk to you guys for hours. There's so many important takeaway messages. And I think the two that kind of stand out for me is I think the first thing is I'm going to shift the way I perceive my self-love practice because I have one. If you've listened to my episode on my healing journey, my self-love practice was a very important part of healing my scoliosis. But I want to see it now as not just a self-love practice, but as an act of um, honoring the love that I already am, and not just a self-love practice, but in fact, honoring the love that I already am and seeing myself from that perspective. So I thank you for that. And the other is, which I have learned from every healer, or sorry, healee who's healed, and that is that your past doesn't have to define your future, and you can create the future you desire. And I've learned that again from the two of you. You're both incredible examples of that. I want to thank you both for sharing your stories and for joining me today. You truly are inspiring, and I'm really glad that you took the time to speak with me because I know a lot of people are going to resonate with your journeys, and hopefully, we have inspired, uplifted, given people possibilities of what can happen when you step in and you do the work and what's on the other side. I will have your contact information so people can learn more about Harmonic Leap as well as your Instagram handles. And once again, thank you so much. I'm sending you both my highest love.
Thank you so
Thank
much for having me.
you.
I'm Farhan Dalla. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode of Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast. I hope today's conversation has elevated you in some way and inspired you to connect, move, and meditate. I'd really appreciate your support by following and rating this podcast. Come back soon and join me for another transformative conversation.